Today on Words and Numbers, we're going to get into a new streaming service from Fox,
the evolution of data storage,
rebranding of Cracker Barrel.
Did the government run a surplus last month, and what happens when the world loses faith in the U.S. dollar?
Short answer, the month before last month, it did run a surplus, which makes last month really interesting. Coming up next on Words and Numbers.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Antony.
And this is Words and Numbers.
What's new and exciting in your world this week, Ant?
This month, 43 years ago, the first commercial compact disc was created.
God, was it that long?
Yeah, 43 years.
What year was it?
I do not know. 1982 was the first one.
Because I bought my first CD in 1985.
Yeah. I can remember listening to the first.
For those of you
CD.
wondering,
Amazing.
it was Boston's Third Stage, the great sounding CD.
I own that. It's one of like 2 discs I own.
Yeah, no, and I had a massive collection of CDs, probably 8,000 of them. And when I could fit all of that onto a couple of hard drives and I had to move, well, the CDs had to go.
Yeah. Well, when we moved a couple of years ago, we had, same thing, hundreds of these CDs we had bought over time. So we just I said, there's no point in packing these things up, right? We took pictures of the cover of each one so that we could then go through the streaming services and purchase the albums on there.
That's crazy. You should just get yourself a Spotify or Apple Music account, pay the cost of one CD a month, and you get all the CDs ever made.
But what happened was nearly 1 billion CDs were shipped each year back in the early 2000s, and it reminded me of the sequence that I've seen in my life. I can remember as a kid when I'm first sentient, their records, right? I had a record player.
I had 33 1/3 LPs.
Yeah, and then I can remember my parents got this newfangled device they were all excited about, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Where it's the physical reel and the other thing, and it goes, you have to wind it. Then comes cassettes. And I can remember my father being all excited about cassettes and saying, look at this thing. You can whip it across the room and it bounces off the thing and no damage, you know?
And you can play it in your car, which was great.
You play it in your car. Then 8 tracks, 5 1/4-inch disc. I'm going to broaden my thing here from music to data storage. 5 1/4-inch disc, 3 1/2-inch disc. And the same thing happened. My roommate did it with the 3 1/2-inch disc. He said, look at this, and throws it across the room and it bounces off the wall, right? Then the CD, then the DVD. Then for a short while, thumb drives. In streaming. Now, here's the problem. There's a whole list of these things, and it's so impressive, to have lived life and seen all these things. What comes next? I mean, after streaming, a head implant maybe, but I don't know what can come after any of this.
You often talk about a head implant, and for me, that would be a ferociously bad idea. I can't wait until you get a head implant. I will find I will find a way to control you.
Get Words and Numbers on CiVL.com and on CiVL's TV and mobile apps. Regular episodes are free. Sign up for an annual membership to support our show and for access to member-exclusive content. Let me throw out, as I was thinking about this, what could possibly come next in this list of things? Of course, looking back is always easy. Looking forward, you can't figure out. So the head implant's obvious, but then what occurred to me is, particularly as AI gets better and better, imagine a world maybe only a few years down the road where AI understands your taste in music. And so you say, you get on the AI and say, I'm in a good mood or bad mood, whatever it is, give me some music, and the AI will design and play the music right there. So what you're hearing is something that's never been heard before.
Yeah, that's going to be dreadful. I mean, just dreadful.
I don't know.
I think that will happen, and I think people won't particularly care for it because it's the essential human element in music that resonates with us. And if you know it was made by a machine, I just don't know. I don't see it happening. What I do think is going to happen is I think we're going to take something that looks like a backward step, because as storage technology gets better and better and better, and it's unbelievable, right? From our perspective of a couple of decades, what you can now fit on something that is as big as your fingernail. I suspect we're all going to have a cube of some kind that contains every piece of music ever written and recorded, every book from every library, every movie and every TV show, and every whatever else we want. And we'd just be able to take it with us wherever we go.
Well, I mean, in effect, you do.
Yeah, kind of, but that's not physical storage. I think it will be physically on our desks, right? So we can move it about and it won't be messed with. And, there's something about having the sum total of human knowledge online and editable that makes it difficult to work with, let's just say, because people have no business editing things, edit them all the time. And we're going to have to get around that sooner or later. And I think digital ownership is going to flourish again the way it once did. I think it'll all be free of charge, as we go. But I think there it will be. I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see as well. The thing I want to talk about this week kind of butts up against this in a very odd sort of way. Well, let's start with this. How old do you think, or what age, let me not bait you in any way, what age do you think the average Fox News viewer is?
Fox News. That's interesting, because I bet you it's senior citizen level. I bet you. Young people don't seem, from what I have observed, young people seem not to have time for that nonsense. And the older people I know get completely fired up by it, in left and right.
Give me a number.
65?
Very close. 69 is the correct answer. So you were very close. I was bowled over by that number, because you have to remember there's a cadre of young men who are very right of center. I refuse to use the word conservative anymore, because nobody's conserving a damn thing. They're right of center, right? They lean authoritarian. And that's gonna skew the number downward. And still the number is 69. And if you're an executive over at Fox and you're seeing that number, you've got yourself a problem.
Yeah.
Because your entire viewership is going to die soon.
Once upon a time, Fox was for the young people.
Once upon a time, when it first started, wasn't making any money, right? I mean, people forget that that's where we saw The Simpsons. Hell, that's where we saw the Tracy Ullman show, which gave us The Simpsons, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, there's another problem on top of that, because cable viewership is declining, just broadly and generally.
Yeah, I believe that.
And the people over at Fox, and I got this from the Financial Times from the UK, if you want to go look it up, the people at Fox are betting heavily on a new streaming service that they're going to offer. And here's why it really, really, really pisses me off. They're going to put their football games on this streaming service. So I wonder if it will become impossible to watch these games without the service.
Right.
But they think that they can get a brand new audience for Fox News by slipping it in this way as part of a streaming service app. And I don't know, but they're hoping that people will stop paying $100 for their cable and start paying $20 for Fox News and just move on. I have a hard time believing that that's going to work, but stranger things have happened, so we'll find out. I am already agitated about the possibility of not being able to see NFL games on Sunday.
Yeah, it strikes me as, now I'm not a Fox News viewer. In fact, I don't view any of them, but it strikes me that the problem there isn't the media that they're utilizing, but rather their content. If they're not going to change the content, the format, they're not going to improve their audience.
That's right. It probably isn't going to work.
Hmm.
Right? Just serving up the same nonsense in a different way. In the end, you're going to get the same viewers, but only fewer of them. Anyway, right. This, of course, Ant, brings us to the foolishness of the weekend. And this one's kind of nostalgic for me, and I hope for you, because you and I once, and I mean once, when we were on the road together giving lectures, we went and had dinner at a Cracker Barrel. Do you remember that god-awful night?
That's right, we did.
Well, the Cracker Barrel is rebranding itself. They're keeping the name, but, the logo has been changed. It's no longer, a Cracker Barrel.
In fact, I have to throw in here, you and I, it was only once, we went to a Cracker Barrel, and we had dinner with my Uncle Jack of alpaca poo fame. And anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, just go back a couple of episodes, and I'll tell you the story of the alpaca poo.
Jack was a great guy. The Cracker Barrel sucked beyond all belief. I mean, just beyond all belief. They served me green beans that were obviously from a can. Now, you know what's not going to help that kind of thing? A logo refresh.
I heard this just today. Yeah.
That's not going to help. You have to fix this. For the love of God, serve up food people want to eat, and then lots of people will come to your restaurant.
This is no different than the Fox News thing.
It's really quite the same when you think it through. And I'm willing to say, and look, Cracker Barrel's CEO said, oh, yes, we've been getting lots of positive feedback. Woman, you're in an echo chamber.
Yeah. Right.
Because this is just dumb and stupid is all this is. And I am willing to say to the nice people out there, if you need a marketing consult, don't hire marketers. Give me a call.
Well,
I mean, please, they think of this as like the dark arts, that nobody's allowed to know what marketing is. That's just ridiculous. Cracker Barrel is still going to be the same god-awful place it was yesterday.
Well, this is interesting because I've done in my time quite a number of marketing studies for companies on
it's your fault.
Contractual basis. Well, it matters tremendously what question you ask. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that matter tremendously. But if, for example, they're showing the old logo and the new logo and asking people which one do you like, and everybody's saying, oh, yes, I like the new logo, they may well be coming back and saying, oh, yeah, the new logo's great. Without asking, but would this make you go to Cracker Barrel more often? That's the question that matters.
I went to Cracker Barrel that one time. I will never go to Cracker Barrel more often. I'm done. I'm done with Cracker Barrel. And look, restaurants have come back from the brink. Our Arby's was a disaster. Nobody wanted to eat at Arby's. I remember in The Simpsons once, one of the little twins looked at the other twin and said, I'm so hungry, I could eat Arby's. It was that kind of a joke. But anybody who's been to Arby's lately knows it's fantastic.
Right.
Right? And they had this great advertising campaign. We have the meats. You can hear the guy's voice when I say it, right? It was that kind of good. But it came with a complete and total rebuilding of the entire brand from the bottom up. And they paid the price and they waited it out. And now when you go to Arby's, God help me, the food is great, it's clean, and everybody's happy. It's the exact opposite of my once beloved Burger King, which is somehow going down the tubes more every year. But we're off on a tangent at this point. All I'll say is that this is all silly, but even sillier was that all the MAGA people lost their minds about it. that this is somehow this refresh. They took their lead from Donald Trump Jr., who tweeted out what a travesty this was, that the Cracker Barrel logo is no more. Don't you people have something better to do? For the love of God.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better that they're occupied with this. Kind of like when Big Don.
Oh, my God. That's going to stick.
That's right. It is going to stick, isn't it? When Big Don goes golfing and everybody says he shouldn't spend all that time on the golf course, would you prefer he was at his desk governing? Golf some more. That'd be great. That's what I
say about gridlock.
Yeah,
people say,
the
party should work more together. No, they shouldn't.
Oh, God,
gridlock is great.
The parties should hate each other beyond all repair.
Words and Numbers is part of the CiVL network. CiVL is a streaming platform dedicated to upgrading civilization by exploring better ways for people to organize, innovate, and thrive. At CiVL, we believe that societies flourish when their members honor the civic equality of all people and engage with one another through cooperation. CiVL seeks great minds from around the world to share bold ideas for fostering healthy, dynamic societies. By creating space for honest disagreement among people who share a commitment to building a better future, CiVL offers a refreshing alternative to divisive punditry and insular echo chambers. Words and Numbers is freely available, but those who subscribe to CiVL will access exclusive content, including regular live streams and conversations with remarkable people who are working to build a better society. For more information and to subscribe, visit CiVL.com. That's CiVL.com. Use the code Words and Numbers, that's one word, for 50% off an annual subscription.
Anyway, let's get into it. What do you got for us this time around?
This episode comes courtesy of one of our listeners, Nick. And Nick, you're out there. I apologize because I don't know how your last name is pronounced. Nick Ramage, perhaps? Ramage? But Nick, we'll just say Nick. Nick writes, he says, what would it mean if the U.S. could not prove to the world that the dollar is safe? The recent Big Beautiful Bill will add more to the U.S. debt, while China is not buying as much U.S. debt. Does this happen in times of war? Does China see us as a declining civilization?
Well, I mean, let's not go crazy. The civilization and the dollar are not fundamentally linked, right? But the country and the dollar are fundamentally linked.
Right, sure.
The country,
yes.
we cover this a lot. If the country disappeared tomorrow, we would all still be civilized. There would be civil society. It would shake out differently than it has, but it would be okay.
Right.
We'd have a couple of bad years, and then we'd be back on top. In smaller ways.
And there's plenty of examples of this. Yeah. Major countries that have gone through such things.
Think Soviet Union in most of our lifetimes, right? But this is an interesting question, right? Because our debt has been downgraded by three different rating organizations.
All three agencies, yeah.
So and look, it's down from a lot of A's to fewer A's, right? It's not like it went to C-.
That's right. It didn't go to C-, but here's the interesting thing. There are three rating agencies that rate debt on safety. And all three of them over time, I think the first one was back when Obama was president.
Yeah, it was years ago.
But over time, all three of them have ended up knocking the safety rating of the U.S. debt down from the highest level to one below. And what's interesting about this is Microsoft's debt is safer than the U.S. Treasury's debt.
Yeah, I have no trouble believing that, none whatsoever. And look, it matters because the rating is going to determine what rate of return you have to offer to people as they buy your debt. And if you're rated lower, you're going to have to pay more out to get people to give you money for a while. And that gets kind of painful. And, add that to the interest on the debt that we already have to pay, and you can see where this is problematic. And every time the Fed raises rates, it plays into this too, right? And this is why Donald Trump is yelling at the Fed to lower interest rates, because once interest rates are lower, people can buy houses that they couldn't buy before. They will buy cars that they wouldn't have bought before. And then we get lots of inflation, which he's convinced won't happen for some reason.
He's convinced about lots of things that
Yes,
won't happen
yes,
for
yes.
lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons.
But yeah, so let me back up just a step, because we talked about the federal debt, and we talked about and Nick's original question was about the U.S. dollar. And the two things are related, but they are also distinctly different.
Yeah.
So you can have a situation where the federal debt is becoming questionable in terms of quality, but the U.S. dollar isn't.
Right.
And in fact, that's kind of what's going on.
Kinda. Right? Kinda. Because we have to wait and see. Everybody was all worried about the euro. Remember, of course you remember this.
Oh, yeah.
You were probably in grad school at the time. And they were convinced that the euro was going to somehow knock the dollar off its perch. How exactly? Well, nobody ever answered that question, right? They just,
yeah, and I think what people had in mind, and I was wondering about it too. I was expecting the euro, when it first came out, to shoot up in value, and it didn't. It came out and it just stayed at whatever value it came out at, roughly a euro to the dollar. But the reason people thought it would shoot up in value, myself included, was because Europe was forming this European Union, and it was going to have free trade amongst the countries, and things are going to run much more smoothly. And because of that, Europe, so when the theory, would become much more productive. And that is what underlies the value of any currency. How much can you buy with it?
But it turns out, Ant, they remained Europeans.
They did, and this is something that I discovered later, as I was going back some years later asking that question. How come the euro never popped? Come to find out, to cobble together those countries, to get them to sign on to form the European Union, the organization, the EU, had to hand out special favors. And the special favors would come in the form of regulatory things. So if, for example, I'm just making stuff up, but basically this is the case. If, for example, Italy was not nearly as good at making cheese as the French were, then Italy would join the EU, provided there were certain restrictions put in place that favored Italian cheesemakers over French cheesemakers. And it was all kinds of regulations like this that did what you would imagine. They hobbled the European economy. And that's why the euro never took off.
So the dollar remains as currencies go, and that qualifier always has to be there. As currencies go, the dollar is very strong.
Yeah, the dollar's doing quite well. And I take your point. I say repeatedly that the United States, or the U.S. dollar, is the prettiest guy at the ugly guy dance. And
that's a nice.
That's
way
about
to put
right.
It.
Yeah,
it's nice how you made that about men instead of women. So now we don't get hate mail, because every man in the world doesn't give a shit about what you just said, but every woman would hate you to her core.
But here's the thing. Go back to the question, what is it that makes a currency valuable? It's that you can buy goods and services with it. And so the more stuff Americans produce, the more valuable the dollar becomes.
Yeah, that's right. And it's accepted damn near everywhere.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I was looking this up. I wanted to know, what is the total amount of foreign currency that's traded daily on world markets? And it's about $8 trillion. $8 trillion worth of currency is traded on the world markets. Now, to put that in perspective, so that means over the course of 4 days, as much money, currencies are traded on world markets as our entire economy. But of that, and if you have to I'm going to put a footnote here. ChatGPT told me this. I've not verified it.
No, here we go.
But it sounds a little bit off, but it's probably directionally correct, that 90% of those transactions involve U.S. dollars.
Yeah, I think directionally correct would be exactly the way I would put that too. Every now and then some crackpot idea rises up and it's going to take the place of the dollar. It was the euro. Now it's this BRICS arrangement. No, it's not.
Yeah,
not anytime soon. Not anytime soon.
BRICS is worth mention. People often bring it up to me because the BRICS currency and the initials stand for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those countries got together and they decided they would form a common currency for the express purpose of supplanting, or I shouldn't say supplanting, but being an alternative reserve currency to the U.S. dollar. And I could tell you right off that that currency probably has little to no chance of becoming a serious reserve currency.
No, not with that crew supporting it.
Well, yeah, because of at least two of the names in BRICS, Russia and China. I mean, who would invest in a currency? I mean, that's what it means to be a reserve currency, that you're buying it not for the sake of buying and selling goods, but you're buying it as an investment. Who would buy a currency as an investment whose two major backers are command economies?
Right. Oh, and let me go a step much, much further. The Russian economy is just destroyed by this foolish war that it's been involved with in Ukraine. Remember the one it was going to win in 3 days? Well, 3 years later, it's costing millions and millions of the lives of young men who will never be productive in that economy because they don't exist anymore. And China is losing population so fast that it will cease to be a country in our lifetime.
Yeah, and so let me underline two of those things there. China's population is declining. It's expected to decline by half by the end of this century. 1/2. Russia, their population has topped out. So stop and think about what a war means. I mean, up until this point in human history, you have a war, a bunch of people die, but a couple generations later, your population is back and even bigger than it was before. If your population is topping out and you lose a bunch of people, that's it. You're not getting them back.
And the people you lose are exactly the age of young fathers.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, good luck with that. Well, we've got quite a lot going on here. All of a sudden, this conversation sprawled a little bit, but I wanted to get back because we said maybe a month ago.
Oh, the surplus? Yeah, hold off on that just 1 second. I got one other thing that Nick touched on I want to mention. He says, so we've got this problem of we're adding more and more to the U.S. debt while China's not buying as much. People make a big deal about this. I've heard people say from time to time, well, what happens when China calls in our debt, the money we owe them? You can't do that.
Portions of the debt expire every day.
Right. They expire on some set schedule. You can't just pick up the phone and say, I want my money back. But nonetheless, people I think have an outsized view of how much we owe China. And usually it's expressed in trillions of dollars.
It's absolutely correct. I think it's orders of magnitude wrong.
Yeah, and actually China has been cutting back on how much it loans the U.S. It used to be above $1 trillion. It's now about $750 billion. But of all the debt, of all the money the federal government owes, it owes 2% of that to China.
That sounds right.
It's 2 cents on the dollar.
And how much does it owe to the so-called Social Security Trust Fund?
There we go. Social Security Trust Fund, and I have to lump in there federal employee pensions as well. 15% of the debt is owed to them.
So more than 7 times what we owe China.
Yeah. In fact, if you take all foreigners together, all foreign countries, foreign companies, foreign people, the U.S. owes all foreigners on the globe 22% of its debt, which is less than what it owes Social Security and the Federal Reserve combined.
That sounds about right. So,
the bulk of the debt we owe here to Americans.
So we're in a strange place, right, where we say the dollar is strong, and it is, because you can buy stuff with it every day, everywhere. But we are ourselves are undermining the strength of our own currency with the debt.
Yeah, we are. And I said a moment ago, they're separate things, but they are related. And here's how that works. The more debt we have, the more upward pressure we're going to get on one or the other or both of inflation and interest rates. And the more upward pressure we get on that, the slower our economy grows. And what did we say earlier? The reason a dollar has value is because you could buy American goods with it. And if we're producing fewer and fewer American goods, the dollar becomes worth less and less.
Yeah, and if we can't afford foreign goods, it's the same story.
Right.
Right.
Oh.
And we had a big pop in the price of produce this last month. Imagine that. I wonder why.
Yeah.
What could possibly have accounted for a massive increase in the cost of groceries? Probably these tariffs. I'm just going to throw it out there as a possibility.
Is it possible tariffs had something to do with it? Right, yeah. No, it couldn't have, because the foreigners are paying the tariffs, right?
Yeah, that's right. Meanwhile, we literally can't grow coffee in the United States. What are we trying to balance exactly? What are we trying to balance exactly with the countries we buy coffee from? What the hell, right? Why does coffee have to cost more? Every single piece of produce I looked at the grocery store when I went yesterday, and I finally went to I don't go often, right? Because A, I can't be trusted there, and B, I become irate when I see what the prices have become. But the wife's out of town for a week, so I thought it would be good if I had food. So I went to the grocery store. This was not a good idea, because I walked out just pissed beyond belief. It's unnecessary. It's absolutely unnecessary.
Unnecessary is the right word. We did that to ourselves. We shot ourselves in the foot.
And the White House yesterday, God help me, released an image, a meme upon the world showing the profit made by Joe Biden with tariffs, straight line going from left to right, meaning not so much, and then the Trump tariffs, and it went like this, a big line way up to the sky. And they said the numbers tell the story. My response, yes, the numbers do tell the story. You taxed the United States citizens $150 billion.
Right. That's where that spike came from. It was coming out of our pocket.
Came out of my pocket, out of all of our pockets, for no good reason. And here we are. And we have the White House bragging about it. And a bunch of their minions saying, hooray. Do they not go to grocery stores? Do they not see what's going on?
You raised this point a couple of episodes ago, and you said that it was all in the news that the U.S. had a budget surplus in June, which actually I hadn't heard that. You're hearing it from you right then was the first I'd heard of it. But I've since gone back and looked at the numbers, and it turns out that's absolutely the case. We did have a budget surplus in June.
And we talked about it when it happened, right? And it happens after the fact. You have to wait to July to get the June numbers. You get the July numbers in August, and here we are in August. And you might remember, Ant, we promised to get back to this to see if it's becoming a trend, right? Because we would love it to be a trend. And so would Donald Trump. So for once, all three of us want exactly the same thing. From our perspective, he's not going about it correctly, but, what can you do? So, but we promised that we would get back to this the next month to see if a trend was emerging or if this was $127 billion nothing burger. And I recall you told us how long we could fund the federal government on $27 billion. Do you have any recollection what it was?
I'm guessing it's about 3 days.
Oh, it's that long.
Yeah, I think we burn about, maybe it's 2 days. We burn about $18 billion a day. The federal government burns about $18 billion a day.
Okay. So what's the trend look like? Surely we have another surplus.
Well, all right. Well, first things first, we absolutely did have a budget surplus in June. The federal government brought in revenue $27 billion more than it spent.
That's a lot of
and
cheddar.
Of course, everybody points to that and says, yeah, this is because of the tariffs.
But the tariffs
Yeah.
hadn't taken effect yet.
Yeah, well, some of them had, but they hadn't all kicked in. But nonetheless, here we are with now, this is August, so we have July figures. And if that surplus in June was due to the tariffs, even more so we should see a surplus in July.
That's right, because more of them came online in the month that followed.
And the number is markedly bigger. It is 10 times the size. June was 27 billion. July's number is 290 billion, but it's in the opposite direction. It's a deficit, not a surplus.
Imagine that. I swear there were a couple of wise-ass podcasters who predicted exactly this about a month ago. Yeah. Ain't that something?
Someone might say, well, what about that $27 billion surplus in June? Certainly it can't be coincidental. To which I reply, look, this is a monthly thing. There's all kinds of cycles, just like there is with your paycheck, right? Every other Friday, you're flush with cash. And every other Thursday, you're, eating ramen noodles in the same way with the federal government. So what people did not say when they pointed to the June 2025 surplus, they did not mention that in September 2024, we had a surplus that was 2.5 times larger.
No, that can't be right.
Billion.
That can't possibly be right. That was Joe Biden's presidency.
That was the other guy, right? Yeah.
That I've heard that's impossible.
Well, the thing is, and we say this often, it's not always the case, but it's the case more often than people would think. The stuff that goes on in the economy has little to do with whoever's in the White House.
Yeah, or let's put it differently. Less to do with people in the White House than you might think.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm seeing people all over social media literally thanking Donald Trump for lower gas prices.
Yeah.
No, Pumpkin, that's not how that works.
Yeah. You caught me off guard with the gas prices, but I can tell you they go up and down all over the place, right? This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. In fact,
or very little. Let's just say very, very little.
Very little. If pressed, I'm sure, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure I could pull up Joe Biden's term of office and find periods when the price of gas was lower than what it is now. And that didn't have anything to do with Biden any more than this has to do with Trump.
Yeah, that's right. So, presidents always get way too much credit for a good economy, and they don't get near enough blame for the nonsense they do.
Yeah, and the nonsense typically comes in the form of structural stuff. So a president who makes some fundamental change that persists. So I'm thinking, my guess is when the next party comes to power, these tariffs are going to go away if President Trump doesn't get rid of them himself. But if they were to stay, if they were to become entrenched, and all of a sudden there are factions within the United States that are benefiting from, which some are benefiting from these tariffs, and there's now political will to keep them, then that's a structural change. Then indeed we can point to a president and say, you did this. But we can only point years after the fact.
Yeah, that's right. Years and years and years. So where it's all going to go, I'm not exactly sure. I know one thing for certain. The debt will continue to grow at a higher and higher pace as time passes.
Yeah, and somebody asked me coincidentally just today, by how much? I ran the numbers going back to 2000. The federal debt has been rising at an average of about 7%, a little bit more than 7% a year since 2000.
And expect that to get larger. Because they keep spending more money, right? There's nothing to slow them down. So I know that for certain. Something I know with less certainty, but with a fair amount, is that the dollar will remain strong for years to come.
I think so.
Maybe not decades, but years.
I think it's going to be decades.
It could be. I'm open to the possibility, but I know pretty certainly that for the next few years, at least, we're going to be fine.
Words and Numbers is a CiVL original podcast. We work with CiVL to advance their mission of upgrading civilization by exploring ideas that promote civic equality and cooperation. We believe the most pressing issues humans face, war, poverty, debt, tribalism, arise from coercive institutions that bring out the worst in us. We at CiVL look to voluntary solutions to these and other problems. We invite you to explore CiVL's new platform at CiVL.com. That's CiVL.com. Yeah, I think it's going to be decades. I wouldn't say century, but I think it's going to be decades. And the reason I say that is not to any credit to the U.S. dollar, except that, again, we're the prettiest guy at the ugly guy dance. I think everybody else is going to remain ugly. But there will come a time when some other country comes to the fore, and anybody who wants an example
gets a haircut and cleans himself up and looks just a little better.
Yeah, if anybody wants an example of this, think about England, Great Britain at the time.
Yes.
At the time, it commanded more of the surface of the earth than any other national entity in the history of human beings. The British pound was, without question, the global currency, period.
Without question.
And
the same way it's dollars now, only more so.
Yes. It took just one generation for that to change.
Yeah. I mean, look, the English pound is strong. You'd be okay if you held on to some, but it's not the dollar.
Yeah. As long as we're on this topic, James, because I have some contenders. Off the top of your head, if you were to point to a country that you think would supplant us, and I don't mean that in the sense of being dominating the U.S., but I mean in terms of becoming the new world leader, economic world leader. Who would you point to?
That's a hard question to answer. I thought you were going to ask me if I had to bet on a currency, which one would I go buy? And I'd buy whatever they're using in Argentina. Give me that.
Right, with Milei. Yeah.
Give me that. Because it's worth nothing now, and if they keep doing what they're doing, it's going to be worth plenty down the road.
Yep.
But onto the political question, boy, that's a lot harder, right? Because whoever it is, it's going to have a big population, right? Because only a large population internally moves the levers enough to become something used by other people. It's not going to be China and Russia for the reasons that we just pointed to. There's not enough people in Canada or probably in any South or Central American country. Japan is out. It's too small, which leaves us with India.
Interesting. And you left one out that I would put on the list as a possibility.
Who am I forgetting?
I would say India. I'm making a note here. I would say India provisionally. It's got the population you need, and its population is projected to continue to grow for the next probably throughout halfway through, 3/4 of the way through the century before they start coming down.
Demographically, it's young.
But here's the fly in the ointment. India is not. It's becoming more and more a free market system, but it's not a free market system, at least not in the way that we are. And you've got to have that, otherwise you're not going to make it.
And India's doing it, but they're doing it in fits and starts when they absolutely have to.
Yeah.
They should just throw their hands up and burn the regulations and say, do what you want.
Yep.
They'd be better off if they did that.
Yep.
They wouldn't be well off yet, but they'd be much better off. I'm trying to think of who you could possibly be thinking of. And I think the entire Middle East is out for a variety of different reasons. Every place else is small. It's not going to be Fiji, right? I mean,
well, that's what I've got here. I don't know what their population is, but they're probably smaller. In fact, let me just ask ChatGPT. Let's see if we get a reasonable answer.
How did I get supplanted as best friend by ChatGPT?
It doesn't mouth off at me. Okay. Yeah, I've got a country with a population of roughly 30 million.
Yeah, it's way
which
too
is
small.
like 1/10 our size. On the upside, couple of upsides. One, it's a Western, or maybe I should say Western adjacent. We can say that, and I think Western civilization matters. It matters. It matters not perhaps because it's Western, but it matters because
No,
it's
because
built on.
it's foundational. It's foundationally
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, the foundations
it's
are right.
It's, as I like to say, the winning boys magic.
Mhm.
Right? We got something right a long time ago and built on it. And people now hate it for a variety of reasons, almost all stupid. Right? Because take a look around.
Yeah, the Western culture was built on, amongst other things, reason and evidence. This is what gave us the Renaissance.
That's correct.
So
You
this
still haven't
country,
given me your answer.
Western adjacent, debt very low, economy strong.
Just say the word.
Australia.
Yeah, look, if you told me I had to move tomorrow, but I could move anywhere, right? I would pick Australia.
Yeah.
I might also pick New Zealand for exactly the same reasons.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But Australia is, as an economy, too small.
It is
30 million is never going to happen.
It
you,
is.
You might as well point to
have,
the UK. You point to the UK instead, right?
Well, but the difference is Australia's got the landmass. Their landmass is about the same as, I believe, the 48 states here.
And nothing in anything but the coastal areas is livable.
For the moment, yeah.
For the moment. Yeah. He said from Tucson, Arizona.
Right. But the wild card here, I don't think they're going to make it, but boy, it would be great if they did. But the wild card is the continent of Africa.
Yeah,
their
that
population is projected to grow to 4 billion in the course of the next century.
I choose my words carefully as a rule. So listen to them as I say them. There is no good reason that Africa is poor. There are a number of reasons. They're all shitty.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one single good reason. So there you go. I am always rooting for Africa, and it's on my short list of places. I've never been there. I want to visit. Mm-hmm. I would like to go to a number of African countries. I hope you're right about Australia. We have a lot of listeners there, and I like them when they send us emails. Right? They've recently asked us to do a Zoom call at 2:00 in the fucking morning
for the Western Australia Libertarian Party.
And I'm trying like hell to figure out how I can do it. They asked us, we were scheduled to do it, and the roof literally caved in at the building they were going to do it in. So
right,
we had to postpone. And unfortunately, I'm never out of the house. I never go do anything, but I've got plans that day. I mean, so I'm trying to figure out how I can do this because
I was the day we were supposed to do that. I was flying in from Minnesota. I changed my flight so I could get here by 11 p.m. my time so I could be online at 1:30 a.m. to talk to them.
Yeah, I was in Guatemala at the time thinking, man, tomorrow's going to be a long, long day because, that was hours past you. I think it was 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning for me to do it. At least they canceled early enough that I didn't sweat it out, But I would love to go to Australia. It seems like just my kind of place. So who knows? Maybe we'll go there one day.
One thing, I have a note here. I want to say this before we close out the episode. Earlier on, we're talking about the debt, and I had mentioned that most of the debt, actually it's about 70, I'm looking at this, almost 80% of the federal government's debt is owed to Americans in one form or another. To which people will respond, well, but that's good because that debt doesn't count. It's money we owe ourselves. It is not money we owe ourselves. It is money that some of us owe to others of us. And if
it only doesn't count if you're not going to make the payment.
Right. If you're going to make that argument that, well, money that the U.S. government owes to Americans doesn't count because it's money we owe ourselves, extend the argument. By that argument, there is no debt on planet Earth because everybody on Earth that owes money owes it to somebody else on Earth. It's all debt
right.
we owe ourselves.
Right. We don't owe anything as long as it's to other people.
Right.
Right. I mean, it brings us to the question, doesn't it, that we always ask, what do we owe each other? And payment of debts has to be near the top of that list. Right, that's a thing that we actually owe each other.
Because when you don't pay your debt, all sorts of things downstream happen that you do not want to happen.
You do not want. And the sacrosanct nature of a contract is part and parcel of Western society. And you got time for a really quick story?
Sure.
People can tune out now if they don't want to hear it because, it's just a story.
I would say that everybody's going to tune out because it's you.
Well, go ahead. But I'm working with a group of people who have invested a lot of time, effort, energy, and money into a scheme to build low-cost housing in a country I used to live in, Iraq. You would think the Iraqis would be thrilled with this. It's an American, Kurdish coalition of partners who are looking to build these apartments, and they're looking to build 1,500 of them. So in Erbil, which would be outstanding, right? If people could afford solid housing, right? It's not luxury housing, but it's really solid. And it's gotten all fouled up, and maybe we'll do an episode about this later where I will name names and tell you exactly what's happened, but it's gotten all fouled up because government officials demanded 30% of the project, not to the government, but to themselves.
Oh, bribes.
It's a bribe, yes. They demanded a 30% bribe on a 1,500-unit building project.
Wow.
And the builders haven't gotten all the permits and done everything by the codes available to the extent that there are laws in Kurdish Iraq. They were ready to go, and then the politicians stepped in, and all of a sudden they had a problem with all of their certifications that will only be solved by giving the 30%.
Mm-hmm.
So now they can't build. And then a couple of months went by, and they had another meeting where the politicians decided, we really need 35.
You couldn't pay do they understand how negotiating works?
No.
I thought you were going to come back and say 10.
Well, 10, you probably just pay it, need it as a cost of doing business.
Right.
But 35? 35 means apartment buildings don't get built, which means that people don't have places to live. You would think that the politicians would care about this. Anyway, I'm working on trying to get this problem solved, and I have threatened to go public with all the names of all the people who have pulled all this shit.
Why threaten? Just let's do an episode on this. We'll get a lot of listeners in Iraq.
We do, and I think we probably could get a guest on that has something to do with this mess.
Oh, I'm game, James. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. But that's the story for this week. I come up with one for next week, too, I guess. But until then, Aunt, have a great week. Take a minute of every day, maybe even 20 minutes, a half an hour, to sit in silence and do nothing, because that's when all the best thoughts come into your head. Just let them come, and be nice to each other. If you could do just those two things, your whole life will be better for it. I promise. See you next time, man.
See you next time, James.